What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the channel today for another champ refresh video, which if you've been following this series, you'll know we have one final class to cover, and that is the Mystic class, which if you're new to the channel or new to the series, what I like to do is pull out a character, and if they're underperforming or boring or they have no utility, whatever you want to call it, I like to take those characters and theory craft ideas to be able to improve them, not necessarily making them OP. That's not really the point of this. It's just to try to come up with new, interesting ideas that would give them more utility, make them more fun to play with, just something that may make you pull them out of the bottom of your roster and actually rank them up and use them. So there's not really anything like this out there in the MCOC community. I have a lot of fun doing them. I don't really think they actually make any impact. I don't think Kabam watches these or has any interest in what I have to say. But I do them because I enjoy them, which now that this series, I don't want to say it's coming to a close, but I've done, now this will be all of the classes. Started with Tech, finished with Mystic, so I don't know if I want to now go back and pick out some weaker characters that I didn't cover to begin with, or if I want to move this maybe into Masteries, or I don't know what I want to do. So at this point, if you have any ideas of champs that you would like to see moving forward now, even if it's a class we've already covered, definitely leave those comments down below. Would love to hear from you. Alright, let's jump right into Loki. Now before I started putting this video together, I wanted to actually use Loki a little bit to get a better understanding of him. And one of the things I realized that I didn't know is with his S3, he applies a curse to the enemy, and the curse, as long as it's active, it automatically steals any buffs that the enemy has. And that can be refreshed by using a heavy attack, which I thought was really cool. However, it's a little bit clunky to use, but that curse aspect of him, I kind of latched onto and I really liked, and I thought, you know what, I would like to use that, but I think I would like to kind of manipulate it around and not necessarily make it a buff steal, but actually implement that into his overall gameplay. So passively, Loki will be built around this curse effect that he can apply, and then everything else that he does, all of his specials are all built around manipulating the curses that he is applying to the enemy. So passively, he's going to apply a curse. It'll be a percentage chance per crit, so I don't know if I want to make it like a 50% chance. I feel like it's pretty good, 1 in every 2 crits. Maybe even a little bit less than that, but there'll be a chance every time that you crit to proc one of these curse debuffs on the enemy. And these will not be on any kind of a timer, and you can stack them all the way up to 10. Now, curses have multiple effects, but just passively we'll start here. Curses lower the enemy power gain by 1.5% per stack. So at 10 stacks, you're talking there's a 15% power reduction. They also reduce ability triggers by 2% per stack, so that's all the way up to 20%. Now those numbers are negotiable. They are just kind of numbers that I pulled out that I thought feel okay. But yeah, passively he's got a little bit of power reduction, also ability reduction built into the curse. Now what he will actually use the curses for, we'll start with the S1. The S1 right now is pretty boring, and what I think I would like it to do is the S1 has a chance to convert up to 3 curses into different effects. So what I mean by that is the S1 can apply a heal block, a poison, and a power lock. But in order to do that, you're going to be removing a curse. So for instance, if you start the fight and you only have 1 curse on the enemy when you fire your S1, it's always going to go in the same order. It's going to apply a heal block, a poison, and a power lock. So if you use the S1, there's only 1 curse on the enemy. It's going to convert that 1 curse into the very first debuff, which is a heal block. If you use the S1 and there's 2 curses on the enemy, you're going to have a heal block and then a poison. And then if you have 3 curses on the enemy when you use an S1, you'll get the full effect of the heal block, the poison, and the power lock. This will be active for what I'm going to say is 8 seconds. I feel like 8 seconds is a good amount of time. I was going to say 5 at the beginning, but 5 really isn't enough time to take advantage of the power lock aspect. Also, most regens, I would say, are longer than 5 seconds. But I felt like 10 seconds was too long, so I think the middle ground there, I think 8 seconds is a good number on that. But basically, you're trying to stack up these curses as much as you can. And if for some reason during the fight, you've got a regen that you know is coming, or you're dealing with a character who you know has a power gain or Mystic Dispersion champ, If you want to use this S1, if you've got at least 3 curses on the enemy, you'll have the full effect of the heal block, which means willpower will not be able to kind of reduce the poison damage. And then also you'll have the power lock sitting there for 8 seconds. So ultimately you want to keep as many stacks as possible, because if you've got 10 stacks, you use your S1, you're still going to have 7 stacks there for the full, or not for a full amount, for a decent amount of power control for the reduction passively the curses give. Also, ability triggers are still going to be lowered, plus you'll get the 3 full effects from the S1. The S2 is all centered around the idea that Loki as a sorcerer has the ability to manipulate energy around him. We have seen the ability, and even in the movies, to shapeshift, to replicate and mirror himself, make more copies of himself, and control all of that. So the S2 is going to be more of a buff for himself than an outright damage dealing special. Think of it along the lines of Karnak, how he does an initial knockback hit and then buffs himself with True Strike. Loki will do something very similar in the fact that he will use either his staff or some form of energy damage to push back the enemy, and then apply, I don't know what to call it yet, maybe somebody could help me out with the name, but I'm thinking of like a mirrored image buff to himself. The idea is that he's created a duplicate copy of himself. While you're not going to necessarily see it in the animations, there's not going to be 2 Lokis, but the idea is that this copied image of himself is what will be fighting for you, and it also in return will be taking the damage for you. So this buff that you will receive can absorb up to 2,000 damage. You won't receive any damage yourself while this buff is active. It will absorb up to 2,000 damage and convert all of that damage over into a regeneration for yourself. So not only are you able, let's say for example that you're low on health, if you're going up against a boss, maybe even parry and blocking that damage is all fairly significant, and that would kill you if you're getting low on health. If you can pop this S2 and give yourself this mirrored image buff, you'll be able to absorb a lot of that block damage. You'll be able to convert that over into regen, and then keep yourself alive, hopefully, to be able to finish the fight. In addition to this initial hit before he buffs himself will apply 3 curse effects on the enemy. So this goes really well hand in hand with the S1. If you pop the S2, you'll have enough curse effects on hand to be able to use the S1 and get the full benefit of it if you don't already have enough curse effects on the enemy. So we got the S1, we got the S2 covered. That moves us over into the S3, which I was having a hard time coming up with a name for this new debuff. So I actually stole a page from World of Warcraft. Shout out to the Shadow Priests, Mind Blast, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the new debuff with the S3 is called Mind Blast. It's applied to the enemy. There's a 100% chance to proc. It lasts for 10 seconds. And any buff that the enemy currently has when you apply it, or that they gain during the 10 seconds, Loki automatically steals that. But in addition, any of those buffs that triggered that he stole, the enemy is not going to be able to proc those for an additional 20 seconds. So you actually need to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very particular, I guess, really plan out when you use the Mind Blast debuff. For instance, if you're running up against characters who have a power gain, so Mordo or Hyperion, let's say they're in Alliance War and you're having a difficult time controlling their power, you'll be able to place this Mind Blast, which if you time it correctly and Hyperion gains his power gain while the Mind Blast is active, not only will you steal that, but you'll actually keep Hyperion from being able to proc that same buff for 20 seconds, which is actually quite a bit of time. And then if you couple that with also the passive reduction to power that the curse stacks give you, there's actually quite a bit of control there. Now, you'll be able to kind of pair these two things together by stealing the enemy's power gain, then maybe coupling that with the S1 with the power lock. There'll be quite a bit of overall control. While you won't necessarily be able to power burn, you still have a lot of control over when the enemy is going to be able to gain power, when they're going to be able to get the buffs, when they're not going to be able to get their buffs, all of those things. I like characters who have the ability to control that, and I think by giving him more than just a straight power steal, that from what we see right now, having the power steal coupled with the reduction or the inability for the enemy to gain that particular buff, it's got a really interesting aspect to it. So now the only thing left to cover is the Awakened ability, and I'm kind of excited about this one. I want to call it, I think Mind Control is his Awakened ability. Essentially the idea is that the curses that are on the enemy over time, they cause the opponent to become weakened in the mind, to lose control of themselves. So if you have 5 curses active for at least 10 seconds, you will put this mind control debuff on the enemy, and what it's going to do is it's going to cause a degeneration that grows in power based upon the number of curse stacks on the enemy. So let's say you get your 5 stacks of curses on the enemy through your chance to put one on every time you crit. So they've got 5 stacks. You wait 10 seconds, you get this degeneration mind control debuff that pops up. It's ticking for, let's say, 85 to 90 once you're at 5 stacks. Once you go all the way up to 10 stacks of curse, that might be ticking for more like 190 or 200. And this is a skill-based ability, meaning the only way that the enemy has to remove this mind control debuff from themselves is they have to either outright hit you, so blocks or parries, those don't count. If you get hit, whether that be through a normal attack or through a special, they are going to be able to remove this mind debuff, and it restarts the countdown. You got to wait 10 more seconds before you'd be able to reapply this. Or if you fall underneath of 5 stacks of curse on the enemy, so if you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4, if you fall under that 5th stack, you lose the degeneration. So the idea is that Loki is not necessarily a bursty character. You're going to have to be able to build up these curse effects, which you're either going to use these curse effects to control power, to apply poison with the S1, if you've got all these curse effects, or you're going to want to manage your curses and keep as many stacks as possible on the enemy. Let the degeneration tick away as much as possible. Use the S2 to shield yourself to get a little bit of regeneration. And then if you're comfortable at 10 stacks, maybe you can use the S1 to gain the additional poison effect on top of the degeneration. You can use your S3 to steal buffs away from the enemy, steal regeneration from them, to let this mind control really tick away and do a lot of the damage for you. I think that Loki, I think, is, what's the word I'm looking for? When I was reading through his ability list, there's a lot more there that I think that the developers could have taken advantage of that they didn't. I understand that at the time we didn't really have anybody who necessarily had like a kind of a buff steal like Loki did, and it was kind of interesting at the time. But I think as far as being a sorcerer, being able to manipulate energy around him, shapeshift, mind control, all of those things, I think, allow him to have a really in-depth or a more in-depth play aspect that we don't really see from him. And I think taking out this curse from what he has and redoing it and making it more of a focal point, I think would be a really cool idea. I know that this is probably one of the more complex refreshes that I put together, so I hope that everything that I have said has been fairly plain and easy to understand. But anyway, if you like it, if you disagree, whatever, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And yeah, as I mentioned before, just let me know if there's another character that you'd like to see me go back and do one of these on. Would be happy to do it. Alright guys, I appreciate all the support as always. Hope you enjoyed the video. Until I see you in the next one, have a great day.